Welcome to Breakfast at Mom's. I'm Mom, a.k.a. Sandra, and these are my daughters, Candace and Alyssa, and these are my daughter-in-laws, Brooks and Felisha. And we wanted to welcome you to our online community of women where we come together every week to discuss things that we all face as women. So this week, who is our moderator? Oh, Flea. I guess I should have known that. Felisha is our moderator, and what are we talking about?
We're talking about blended families and how it doesn't have to be a nightmare.
It does not.
Mm-hmm. So I come from a blended family, and I also married into a blended family. Well, my husband, he was divorced. Y'all aren't.
Well, we are.
We are too. I'm a blended.
True?
Yes, because
so we know
blending
nothing
going on around here.
look at all this blending we're having in life. Blend. So yes,
And so people ask Trev and I all the time, like, how do y'all have such a good relationship with his ex? Like, how do Chasen and I have such a good relationship together? And it's just something I really wanted to talk about and kind of help our friends out there that maybe are thinking about marrying into a blended family. Maybe you became a blended family, or maybe you're already living it and you're like, how do I make it better? Yeah. Or maybe you're doing it better than us, and I would love some tips too.
I think you and Trevor probably do this better than anybody I've ever seen, guys do. Including when Dad and I had to navigate this. So I feel like you just talk the whole time, and we'll just sit here and sip on whatever it is in our cup.
Starbucks.
Water.
Water. So my first question is, how do you co-parent when maybe the lifestyle that they live is different than what you set in your family?
Yeah.
So Mom, tough. I know
that's tough. Yeah. So we did. We went through that, when Dad and I got married, it was Candace and Brandon, and they're a year apart in age, and so they were 1 and 2. So, but it was hard because our lives were different, and then the opposite side. So, we just had to best instill in them while they were with us. What it is that our beliefs were, and I think we did a pretty great job because she turned out amazing. So fabulous. So for us, that's just what we did. And I think for us too, one of the things that we established, because they were so little, was we personally never said stepmom, stepdad. For us, it was very important that we were mom and dad where we were. I mean, I do that even with all the spouses. I expect you to call us mom and dad. Right, yeah. Colby called me mom the other day, by the way, and it just melted my little heart because that's the first time he's called me mom. Aww. So anyhow, it made me excited. But anyhow, so we just never said stepmom, stepdad. We always said mom and dad. And that was a little challenge for the opposite side in the beginning, but we didn't want anyone to feel like you weren't our child or part of this or whatever. Yeah. So that was probably one of the biggest things that we did. So, I mean, maybe Candace can allude to how that went. I don't really know, but if you can remember, you were, but you had.
I definitely feel
older, like, you probably don't remember a time that I wasn't there because you were
always there.
You were just turning 2.
I think it's always being the child in the divorce, going back and forth to, different parents all the time, and also
holidays,
and also living their life differently.
Yeah.
So one side, my birth mom had her life, and then you guys had your life. And I think also different morals come into fact and everything. Right. And I think if they're little and, small enough that you can still teach them right from wrong, that's big. I would say always speak well about one another. Yes. I think the first thing I ever told Trevor about this, I go, never talk bad about the other parent.
And that's a good point because we always never, ever would do that.
Never. And I said, it's best to show your actions when you're younger, showing that your family member is doing something. Its actions are better than your words. Mm-hmm. So that's very big. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was probably the one thing. And then I just said on my thing, it says, best when you are with me to show them the right from wrong, and hopefully that will impact their life someday. And obviously you impacted my life a lot, so look how great I came out.
Turned out pretty awesome.
I mean,
pretty awesome if you ask me. But I'm saying
you never know what that other family on the other side is going through, and what it really feels internally for that child.
Right.
So whenever they do come to see, you know, on your side of the family, just make sure you're just absorbing everything they can possibly do. Let them vent. Let them do what they need to do to, you know,
well, for
cope with
them,
that.
They are going, I mean, again, I grew up in a blended family, so I would go from my mom's house with one set of rules to my dad's house with another set of rules. And as now a co-parent that, you know, co-parents Chasen, we have a set of rules, they have a set of rules. We live in the city, they live in the country. So there are different rules that he can do in the country that he can't do in the city.
Right.
And I think of it like almost as not a thermostat, but maybe the weather outside. Like you set the temperature of your house, they will adjust their clothes based off of that temperature in your house.
Right.
And so I think about that with Chasen, like it doesn't mean their rules are wrong and our rules are right. And I explained that to him. Like it doesn't mean that. It's just we won't, in our household and in their household, we are trying to keep you the safest, the best way that we can, and these are the rules to do that. So I try to explain that to him because, you know, he went, I forget what he did the other day, but he's like, well, I can flee. I'm like, I understand that you might get to do that, but here you have to think about cars. Like you can't just run out the door. Like you have to look both ways. And so I think it's teaching them that, but not doing it in a way that demeans the other family or speaks wrong of the other family, because we all want the same thing, which is.
And sometimes that's what I said was really good about you and Trevor's ex. Like you guys talk a lot, and like, hey, we're and same thing with Colby and I talk to Tabs a lot. Like, okay, what's your idea on this? Because this is how I feel, and do you feel the same way? So we can both come together. You know, for Roxy.
And if you can do that, we did not have that, but if you can have that. That makes
it makes life so
big
easy.
difference because then you're all on the same page when you're making a decision, and then the child knows that because you know children they're going to play to the best. That's normal.
Don't we know?
That's normal.
They do it even in like Maddie will do it to me. Like she'll come to me if I say no, she goes straight to Dad.
Oh yeah.
And so that's just
if
how
they're
kids
at my house.
But I think too, like
just go to Gigi.
In y'all's situation too, I feel like I've seen the amount of grace that has been shown, like not for the kids, but for the parents as well. Like there's going to be situations that y'all aren't going to agree on. There's going, like you said, there's totally different circumstances and things like that. And the ability for you guys to be able to show the grace and love, be patient, you know, truly communicate and listen and understand before we get quick to anger and all of that. Like you guys really show those things. And I think that makes a huge difference in how your blended family works. And that's hard. That's hard for anybody.
And if you do disagree, don't let the child hear you are having a disagreement. You know, don't bring that in. And because we just kind of alluded, even just don't talk about that other person. People want to do that, and that's probably one of the worst things people can do because the child feels bad. They love their parent that's in the other house 100%. As much as they love you,
and they don't know what the other person's doing sometimes too.
And they still love them.
Exactly.
They still love them. So if they're feeling bad, if you're talking about their mom or their dad and that makes them really hurt and feel bad. So be very careful to not have those conversations. Have them away from where they are so they cannot hear them, because you're not gaining that child's love anymore by bad mouthing that other parent. You're honestly hurting yourself.
I was going to say too, if you're not necessarily in a situation like Felisha and Candace where you have open dialogue with the other side because maybe there just really is no respect left there, at least having the respect of you helped me bring this child into the world. You are the mother or the father that helped create this human being. So at a base level, that's where respect is going to start, because maybe there is a situation that it is so broken that you're like, I have no other respect to give. At least starting
the
there.
child.
Right.
Child should be number one.
So
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly, Candace.
Number
And
one.
it kind of goes back what you just said about, you know, when we talk bad about the other person, like it affects our relationship with our, you know, it's called stepchild. I call Chasen my bonus son, and in front of anybody, he's my son.
Yeah. Right.
But creating that relationship with him. So how do you create a relationship with your stepchild?
How'd you create one with me?
Well, you were so
little. Yeah.
little. So it just, I think the biggest thing was like what I said. I was mom. I wasn't your stepmom. I was your mom while you were here. And we just established that from the beginning. And the same thing with Brandon and Rick. It was like, this is our child. You're not. To me, I've never, ever thought, and I know Dad too, has never thought, oh, you're somebody else's child. You're,
And also
you're my
baby
child.
stage, and you got a different stage. Like also her stage that she was in were babies.
Yeah.
So that's probably lucky for you.
Right. So if they are a teenager,
So I have a
and
teenager.
older, then I think that it's just important that that child knows they're no different. I mean, you
Roxy-
love Roxy
I
as
do.
if she's yours.
Yeah, I do. So how I got, because it's harder when they're teenagers. You're like, oh no, whether what type of teenager are they? Are they sweet?
And you
Are
have
they,
a great one for sure.
I have got the luckiest. I am the luckiest person. Let me tell you, she is phenomenal.
wonderful.
But I had to get involved in her hobbies, so figure out who she is. I did her hobbies, her friends, her activities. What does she like to do? And I just, and then that comes together, doing things, and that becomes the trust and loyalty. That's when she found the loyalty, trust, and then when that comes along, you get your love.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what I had to do for her. Like I had okay, what does she like? What does she, can I do something? So we like to go to Comic-Cons and dress up. And we just did one this past weekend. Yeah. That's the time I get to have with her and with Colby also. And we get to go, this is what she likes to do as her outlet, to be creative, because she's very creative.
Did you do that before Roxy, or did you start doing that because of Roxy?
Just because
of Roxy.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I liked video games. I was still kind of like a little nerd, but I think, more into it now because Colby and Roxy love it. So that's what I do for them.
When Trev and I first started dating and stuff, I started reading on blended families. And one of the guys I read, I can't think of his name, he talked about how building a relationship with your bonus child is like a crock pot. Like you put it in there, but it takes time. Like you can't go super high because you're going to burn it. Like it's got to start low. And I remember Chasen was 4 whenever I came into Chasen's life. And we went to your wedding. Chasen ended up with both types A and B flu.
Wowza.
And the next, I remember when we got back and stuff, Trevor had to go to work, so he asked me to stay with Chasen. And I remember, Chasen was so little, so I just wanted to cuddle and rub him. And I remember he was like, Miss Felisha, because at that time I was Miss Felisha.
Right.
Miss Felisha, can you not rub my back? And I was like, okay. But in that moment, I couldn't get offended because I had not built that relationship with him yet. And in that instant, I was like, okay, I thought about the crock pot. It's not time for that.
That's awesome.
Now, Chasen is sick.
Please don't stop rubbing my back.
He's that little cuddle baby. But
Yes, boy, he loves to be on you.
yes, but it took a while. And Candace
trust.
said,
You're building the trust.
Trust, doing things he liked. I don't like to fish. Fish stink. And it just, but you know what? We went and got me a pole. I learned how to fish, and
You were out there fishing and sweating? Ooh.
fishing,
That's real love from
sweating,
Flea
and
right
I'm
there.
telling you, that's true love, Flea.
So I built his love, and now he goes fishes to the pond by himself, and he thinks it's great. He's like, "Thank you, Flea." I'm like, "Oh, you're welcome." And that was another thing is whenever he got older, I'm like, I don't want him to just always call me Miss Felisha. That
Right.
sounded so formal, but at the same time, his mom is very, very active in his life.
Right.
So mom, I felt was disrespectful. So childhood nickname was Flea, and so he called me Flea. And I sent a text out hey, can everybody please call me this? So Chasen will call me this. So maybe that is you. Maybe you're not going to be mom.
Right.
Maybe you don't want to be Miss or Mister. Change it. Change it to something that's fun and that's for you and him.
Yeah.
So what about disciplining your stepchild?
Well, in my opinion, if
we got in trouble, so let's just be honest, we got in trouble like any other day. It's like another family.
In your home, and they are to abide by your rules. And I think you do a disservice if you give them, especially if you have other children, you're doing them a disservice if they get a special preference because of that. They may not think that, but you really are. If that's the house rule and these are the house consequences, no matter what, they're going to, if this is what you did, this is the result. There's no preferential treatment just because I happen to be your step parent. And so, number one, you're loving them in the same way because, you don't want contingency from the other child, like, well, they never get in trouble. And I think because I also came from a blended family, I didn't like when one of my siblings would get in trouble about something and I knew I didn't get in trouble for that. And it bothered me.
And you were the stepchild in that situation?
No. They were.
Okay.
So I would feel tremendous guilt as I got older because and could realize that because I thought, well, I love them. They are my sisters. Yeah. I love them, but I didn't get in trouble for that and that form of punishment. So I would feel guilty about that. So you don't want to add to that. You don't know what that child is thinking too in that situation because they're going through, they got a lot of emotions happening. They love both of their parents. They love their new coming in parents and their siblings. And so you're just be a family all the way across the board. Like there is no differences.
I love that.
Yeah, I like
Is
that.
that how you discipline Roxy? I mean, she's 16.
She's 16.
It's a little different.
It's a little different. I don't really, I don't set the rules for discipline. This is how we do it in our family. Colby is her dad and Tabitha, they discipline her. Unless he asks me, he's like, where do you see? So there's certain situations I'm like, I feel like the consequences are correct. What she did, this is what, and I always, it's so fun. I'm feel like, what did my mom would do? Yeah. And I'm like, I feel like this is equals to her, what she did wrong.
Yeah.
And he asked me, and then sometimes he takes it. And sometimes he'll do it, him and Tabitha will talk about it. And it's like, hey, I just know she's grounded for this.
Yeah.
Please honor it on your side too when she's there. She can't do electronics. Yeah. So that's how it kind of goes. I don't really, luckily she doesn't get in that much trouble, but she does like to push buttons because she is a teenager. It's just going to happen.
She's driving now. She's got a job.
Guys,
she's
trying
to stretch those wings and see where
and she's doing very well with the stretching the wings. I have to say, even though not to get off topic, but anyways, let me tell you, they haven't gone through what I had to go through last week about driving. And now I know what my mom kind of went through with me probably driving for the first time. I didn't realize how nervous I was going to get. I was so anxious, just anxiety, okay, can she go down there? Because when I first went with her driving, it wasn't it was okay, just not okay, she get better. And I haven't driven there since. Is that we did?
Well, that's right.
You're on your own now.
Yeah. But she's a very good driver. We have cameras, all the fun stuff, which luckily they didn't have that back then. But they have cameras now, which is perfect for insurance purposes. But all the technology now is fantastic. 360 is fantastic.
Couldn't trace.
Can't tell where I was at when I drove.
Yeah.
I was like.
Yeah, y'all aren't even really parenting.
That's true. But let me tell you,
don't get us canceled.
Don't have cameras to watch the babies in the crib.
But let me tell you, the nervousness. I can now probably 10 times worse than what mom had, because now at least mom's a little eased. Okay, she's going 45. Okay, that's good. I don't think it's like Colby can look at it. But I was just nervous just to go in her driving, and that's just a whole other topic of just growing and doing that and just trusting that. But I
think that shows in both y'all stories, it shows how much, even though you're bonus mom, your stepmom, you still adore these kids.
Yeah.
You care for them so much. And to have these even topics of conversation, it shows that your priorities are number one, in the right places. Yeah. And I think that is respected by the biological parents so much. And I think that helps in those situations. It's in the those other blended family situations where maybe the stepmom or stepdad like doesn't, like, they're like, yeah, they do whatever, like they just came with the package, but it's not really my problem.
Right.
But to show that you guys like have like really like grabbed hold, you think about your kids, like you want them to succeed, like it just warms my heart because it's so it's so cool to see that, you know, that you've taken it on and
a good parent would want them to do that.
Yeah. And it's so how it's like, in my view, I'm like, how can, as a parent, because I know how much I love my child, if I was in that situation, how could I have anything wrong to say about you guys, you know, stepping in and doing something? I just think it's awesome.
And for Roxy, I only have 2 more years with her, and she's going to be doing who knows what, college or whatever. But it's like wild, like, because I'm like,
I just got you, and now you're leaving.
Exactly. I'm like, you don't have to leave.
Yeah.
If you don't want to.
I can't tell you that it's
upstairs if you want. It's fine. No one goes up there.
I don't hear if you get them for 18 to 20 years. I don't think it's any easier because I'm just like,
oh.
We love you.
I get emotional thinking about it. I tell them all the time, y'all can live with me forever. Like, Daddy's like, no. I'm like, yes, they can.
They're like, no, you got to go.
No, luckily, Colby is all about like her staying too, so she can do that for a while if she wants.
I love my babies, and I love the relationship. Like, you know, because I feel like sometimes you work harder for it because you really, really want this relationship with them. And
When we were at the funeral the other day and you were crying, and it blessed me that,
Oh gosh, I saw it too.
Yeah.
Chasen just reached over and he was just rubbing your back to comfort you. And, you know, here he was very, you know, Mike was very important to him too. And so it just blessed me. Aww. So I thought, wow, Flea has done a great, great job.
They're always
at
watching.
Establishing
That's all I can say. They're always watching.
Because he was trying to comfort you.
not gonna cry. The last thing would be, what advice would you give someone who is maybe dating a single parent? Like, what advice would you give them on they're thinking about marriage with this single parent?
Oh, that's what I did.
Well, then you go.
Well, one, I think I prayed ahead of time. I always been praying for my husband back in the day, and I always even prayed at the time in my life, like, oh, I'm going to meet one who doesn't have a child. And I'm like, you know what, God, whatever you have planned for me, I do pray for my, I guess you could say baby mama, to invite me in also, like have favor in her eyes too. Because, and it worked out nice. I mean, I have literally, she's the best. She just, thank the Lord for her, like just being so sweet and gracious, and like her child, let me involved in her child's life. But I did pray for that beforehand. But if you are thinking, definitely pray about it. Make sure you are emotionally ready, because it's a world when you're used to just you're yourself, your I, and then you have this new husband, but you also have another human being that you have to like involve,
and a whole other family,
and they already have a whole routine and what you're doing. And like, how can I get involved? And you just gotta make sure you talk and communicate with your person you're talking, like, where do you see me involving in this? Like, and it's a gradual thing, like, and it will go nicely. Just pray and make sure and then, talk to the child, like, depending on how old they are, obviously, and just say, just having time with them, I think, is the best way to go on that. Like, time.
I wrote down the scripture. It's Luke 14:28, and it says, suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? And it hit with me because it's like, in this situation, you really have to understand the commitment you're about to make.
Yeah, that is true.
Because like you said, it's like you are entering into not only a covenant with that human, that person, your spouse, but it is a covenant with that child as well. And so it's like you are making a promise that you're gonna, really, be there for them, to step into those roles that is missing in that house, so that he or she has that consistency throughout their whole life. And I think that it's so important that you take that time to make sure that you are ready to make that commitment.
Yeah, because it's not just when you marry your spouse, you guys are adults. You're having adult conversation. You look at things through the brain waves of how a grown-up thinks. That is not the case with kids. So depending on what age you're going into, whether it's 2, 4, 16, like whatever that is, you have to meet them where they're at. And so that takes maturity from you as a person to be able to go, not only am I trying to blend my life with another person, but I'm going to have enough bandwidth and maturity in myself to be able to raise a smaller human. And that's from day one. I mean, you got married and he's in the house from night one. So that's again, I think it goes down to Brooks was saying earlier, there are some people who feel like, well, they have their biological parents and I won't be a part of that realm. I think that if you are anywhere in that viewpoint, it's not gonna work for you. Like that, I'll be bold enough to say that. Like that's not your spouse then, because you're taking on that child, period, in whatever capacity the biological parents allow you to. So having that maturity and knowing that about yourself, like do a self-check of, am I mature enough not just to be with another adult, but with a child as well.
I like to add to that because that's exactly what I wrote down. Go make sure you're ready to handle it yourself. And the other thing is the co-parent, I tell them my expectations for their child, like what I see in their child and like what I want to handle for them.
Sweet.
So I also told her that.
Awesome. All right. Are we done?
We're done.
Awesome. All right. Well, leave your comments below. Let us know some things that you want to talk about or continue in this conversation. Go over to our website and join us over on Instagram where we have a lot of fun. So until next week, we will see you then. Have a great day.
Bye.